A single American pilot, Lieutenant Commander Robert Dixon, peers through broken clouds at 19,000 feet and can't believe his eyes. Below him, two massive Japanese fleet carriers steam in perfect formation, flight decks packed with planes, crews lounging in the morning sun, completely unaware that death is already falling from the sky. In 30 seconds his dauntless dive bombers tip over, engines screaming, and the entire Pacific War changes forever. This is the Battle of the Coral Sea, May 1942. The first naval battle in history where the opposing fleets never see each other, yet one side is about to lose everything it came for. 6 months after Pearl Harbor, Imperial Japan stands at the peak of its power. Singapore has fallen, the Philippines are collapsing, Wake, Guam, Hong Kong, all gone. Now Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto wants the knockout blow, seize Port Moresby on New Guinea, cut Australia off from America, force the United States Navy to its knees. To do it, he sends the cream of the combined fleet, the giant carriers Shokaku and Zuikaku, the light carrier Shoho, screened by battleships, cruisers, destroyers. Code name: Operation MO. The Japanese believe the American carriers are still licking their wounds in Pearl Harbor. They are wrong. American codebreakers in a sweaty basement in Hawaii have already read the Japanese plans like an open book. Station HYPO, led by Commander Joseph Rockefort, hands Admiral Chester Nimitz a gift wrapped in blood. Exact dates, exact ships, exact objectives. Nimitz does the unthinkable. He strips Pearl Harbor bare and sends every available carrier south. USS Yorktown and USS Lexington, Task Force 17 under Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher. 2 carriers against 3. Outnumbered, outgunned, running on fumes and code intercepts. May 3, 1942. Japanese troops storm ashore at Tulagi in the Solomon Islands, building a seaplane base. Fletcher pounces. Yorktown's air group hammers the invasion force in a lightning raid. Japanese commanders are stunned. American carriers are already here? May 4th becomes May 6th in a heartbeat. Both sides spend 2 days groping blindly across 100,000 square miles of empty ocean. Search planes crisscross the sky, radios crackle with false sightings, nerves fray. Then, at dawn on May 7th, a Japanese scout plane spots what he thinks is an American carrier and cruiser. He radios the glorious news. Shokaku and Zuikaku launch everything. 78 planes streak north at wave-top height. They find the U.S. oiler Neosho and destroyer Sims. In minutes both ships are blazing tombs. The Japanese pilots claim 1 carrier, 1 battleship sunk. Tokyo will broadcast victory bulletins tonight. But 400 miles away the real American carriers are very much alive, and now they know exactly where the Japanese strikers came from. Fletcher turns the tables. Lexington's radar picks up the returning Japanese aircraft. American fighters shadow them all the way home and mark the position of Shokaku and Zuikaku on the map. The trap has snapped shut on the trappers. That same afternoon Lexington launches 46 dive bombers and torpedo planes. Yorktown sends 39 more. They race toward the last reported position. Instead they stumble on something even better. The light carrier Shoho, proudly escorting the Port Moresby invasion convoy. Lieutenant Commander Weldon Hamilton, leading Yorktown's Scouting 5, pushes over at 18,000 feet. The Dauntless fall almost vertically, airspeed needles pegged, wind howling through dive brakes. The first 1,000-pound bomb hits Shoho square amidships. 7 bombs and 5 torpedoes follow in 90 seconds. Flames leap 500 feet into the air. At 11:35 a.m. the Japanese radio operator taps out one final message: scratch 1 flat top. American pilots shout it across the airwaves, and the phrase is born. But the big carriers, Shokaku and Zuikaku, are still out there, still lethal, and now they know exactly where the Americans are. Night falls. Both fleets steam straight toward each other in the dark, launch decks armed, pilots sleeping beside their planes. At first light on May 8 one side will cease to be a carrier force. Exactly 8:15 a.m., May 8, 1942. Lookout on USS Lexington screams, air raid. Many planes, Angels 10, bearing 020. Klaxons howl. 70 Japanese Vals and Kates, led by the legendary Lieutenant Commander Kakichi Takahashi, bore in through broken clouds. American F-4F Wildcats scramble to meet them, but there are too few, too late. The sky above Task Force 17 becomes a whirlwind of tracers and falling planes. A Val dive bomber lines up on Lexington. Its pilot releases at 1,500 feet. The bomb streaks down, punches through the wooden flight deck, and explodes in the Admiral's pantry. Another hits the port forward gun gallery, killing every man at their stations. Torpedoes churn the water on both sides, two slam home. Lexington shudders like a wounded animal, takes a 7-degree list, fires raging below. But Lady Lex keeps fighting. Damage control teams led by Chief Watertender Robert Scott flood magazines, counterflood voids, wrestle the list back to almost even. On the bridge, Captain Frederick Sherman lights another cigarette and calmly tells the helmsman, "Steady as you go." Meanwhile, 175 miles away, American dive bombers have found the main Japanese force. Lieutenant Commander Robert Dixon, same Dixon from the cold open, leads Yorktown's bombing 5 straight at Shokaku. Japanese combat air patrol Zeros swarm them at 15,000 feet. One Dauntless bursts into flame and spirals down, pilot still strapped in. But the rest keep boring in. Dixon rolls inverted, pulls the nose through, and dives almost vertically. His bomb releases at 2,000 feet, streaks down, and smashes through Shokaku's flight deck right at the bow. 2 more direct hits follow within seconds. Shokaku reels, her deck a inferno, unable to launch or recover aircraft. Zuikaku hides in a rain squall and escapes unscathed, for now. Back over the American fleet, the battle reaches fever pitch. A Japanese Kate torpedo plane flies straight into a curtain of 5-inch fire and disintegrates. Another drops its fish at 200 yards, the torpedo broaches, porpoises, and runs true under Lexington's keel. The explosion lifts the 36,000-ton carrier clear out of the water. More fires, more flooding. Yet somehow both American carriers are still steaming, still launching fighters. At 11:18 a.m. the Japanese strike leader, Takahashi, low on fuel and ammunition, turns for home. He will not make it. American Wildcats catch him and send his plane flaming into the sea. The morning strike is over. Score: 1 Japanese carrier crippled, dozens of planes lost, their elite aircrews gone forever. But the Americans are hurt bad. Lexington is burning from stem to stern, gasoline vapors seeping through ruptured lines. At 12:47 p.m. a stray spark reaches the fumes. The explosion is apocalyptic. A white-orange fireball erupts amidships, blows men overboard in flaming pieces, buckles steel decks like cardboard. Captain Sherman finally gives the order no captain ever wants to give: abandon ship. Sailors slide down ropes into an ocean covered with burning oil. Sharks circle. Destroyers pull 2,735 men from the water. Only 216 are lost. As Lexington rolls over, her hull glows red from internal fires. At 7:56 p.m., the destroyer Phelps puts 2 torpedoes into her side. The Lady Lex, the ghost of Pearl Harbor avenged, slips beneath the waves after fighting for 16 hours with mortal wounds. The Japanese believe they have sunk both Yorktown and a second carrier they call Saratoga. They steam north triumphant. But Port Moresby is saved. The invasion convoy turns back. Australia breathes. And there is one final shocking twist nobody sees coming. History books call Coral Sea a tactical Japanese victory, strategic American. They are half right. The real untold story is what the battle cost Japan that can never be measured in steel. Shokaku limps into Kure with 223 dead, her flight deck warped and useless. She will miss Midway entirely. Zuikaku returns with only 9 operational aircraft left out of 60. Her airgroups are skeletons. Combined, the 2 big carriers lose 77 irreplaceable pilots and aircrew, veterans of Pearl Harbor, Wake, Indian Ocean raids. Men who spent years in training, men Japan cannot replace. Compare that to America. Lexington is gone, yes, but her airgroup flies off to safety before she sinks. Those pilots, those planes, those mechanics will fight again in 4 weeks. The pipeline of new Essex-class carriers is already sliding down the ways. Japan has no such pipeline. Declassified Japanese records, opened only in the 1990s, reveal something even more damning. Admiral Hara, commander of the 5th Carrier Division, writes in his diary the night of May 8, "We have lost the cream of our naval aviation for nothing. The enemy carriers escaped. Port Moresby is not taken. This battle was a disaster." But the most chilling document comes from a junior signals officer on Zuikaku. In a letter home never delivered, he writes, "Today we fought ghosts. Our planes took off full and came back empty or not at all. The Americans struck from clouds we never saw. I fear we have taught them how to kill us." And he was right. Because 4 weeks later at Midway, those same American dive bomber pilots, Dixon, Best, McCluskey, Leslie, will use the exact tactics perfected in the Coral Sea: high-altitude search, coordinated strikes, relentless pursuit. They will sink 4 Japanese fleet carriers in 6 minutes. The road to Tokyo runs straight through the blood and smoke above the Coral Sea. One last personal story. Ensign Jack "Tommy" Thomas, tail gunner in a Lexington Dauntless, is blown clear when his plane disintegrates over Shokaku. He parachutes into the middle of the Japanese fleet, is hauled aboard a destroyer, spends the rest of the war in copper mines. In 1992, 50 years later, he returns to Japan as a guest of the surviving Shokaku crew. At the reunion dinner, a Japanese pilot, now 78, bows deeply and says, "You sank my ship. But you also saved my country from worse madness. Thank you." Thomas has no words. He just cries. That is the real battle of the Coral Sea. Not just the first carrier duel, not just the battle that stopped Japan cold, but the moment Imperial Japan's naval air arm bled out in the middle of the Pacific and could never stop bleeding again. And it all began with a handful of dauntless pilots the Japanese never expected to see, tipping over into dives above a quiet ocean on a May morning in 1942. The Pacific War turned here. Everything after was just a long, bloody chase to the finish.